Welcome to this series of presentations on finding and applying for a PhD. This is the third part and it's focused on making an application. So we're going to start by looking at a typical timeline for the UK. Obviously, you would need to check with other countries as things might be a little bit different. We're also focused on the majority of PhD applications where people will be applying to start in the beginning of the academic year, in the autumn. But in reality, many candidates apply and start at different times in the year, especially if they're self-funding. So from spring into summer of the year before you make your application, this is a good point to start researching your options, researching funding opportunities, and talking to academic staff to find out a little bit more, to get their recommendations, and also to start considering what your research topic will be. You can then move on to researching that topic further. And if you need to develop a proposal, this is when you would start to do that. Also start your research into potential supervisors and make contact with them if you need to. If you're applying for advertised opportunities, then this element obviously doesn't really apply to you. In the autumn, you'll be contacting potential supervisors to discuss your proposal if you haven't done that already. If you're looking at funded programs and advertised opportunities such as collaborative programs, then you'll be researching and starting to develop your application for those. And ideally, you need to submit your PhD application by the end of December or early January. Check the deadlines with institutions, but this is typically the deadline if you are likely to be seeking funding for your program. From January to April, this is when doctoral programs will be sort of considering their decisions around who funding will be given to. For other types of opportunities, you may also be attending interviews. Offers will typically be made in this period. If you're not applying, if you haven't applied to date, you may be able to look for other opportunities which have been advertised later, specifically sort of independent projects, and apply to those. And from April to August, this is probably the period where offers will be made, funding decisions will be made. If you've been offered a place but you don't have funding, you can apply for other loans and allowances during this period. And it's really the point where you start to begin to prepare for your PhD. So focusing on the application process, obviously check with different institutions, but it could include an application form and personal statement and a CV. It could include a research proposal. It could include samples of your work. It could include degree transcripts, academic transcripts. You might be requested to provide test results such as GRE or GMAT, particularly if you're applying to universities in the States. You're likely to also need to have an interview as well. So let's have a look at some of these in a little bit more detail. A personal statement or application letter will typically include information about why you want to do a PhD, or if you're applying to a specific opportunity, why this particular opportunity appeals to you, why you're interested in doing it with this university, this department, or this organization. You should be outlining your academic experiences and qualifications as well. So the courses you've taken, your research experience, the skills that you would bring, and why these are relevant to this particular PhD program. Also include any other experiences that might be relevant. So for example, voluntary or professional work experience, any activities that you've been involved in that would be helpful, engagement with relevant professional activities or organizations. And you may need to apply with an academic CV, but just to reassure you, at this stage, this is not going to be too different to a traditional CV that you might use to apply for other jobs. It could include a short statement on your research interests, a kind of profile at the beginning of your CV. It should give a very detailed account of your educational history and academic achievements. This is where it might be different to a job CV. So outline the kind of learning that you've gained from the courses and modules that you've taken. You could include specific research experience as a separate section. You should include details of any funding or awards or prizes that you've achieved. It's not typical at this point in an application for people to have publications or to have experience of presenting at conferences. But if you do, then definitely include them in your CV. Again, any work or volunteering experience. And if you're a member of a professional body, such as the British Psychological Society or the Royal Society of Chemistry, do mention that as well. If you do need to write a proposal, and remember, not all PhD applications will require this, check universities for guidance, check really carefully. They may give you some information about what you need to do and how long it should be. But typically it will include the topic or the hypothesis that you want to investigate, any previous academic work that you've done in this area with reference to the literature. You'll need to explain why it's original research and how it will add to existing knowledge in the field, and what methodology you propose to use. And it's likely to be assessed on the quality, the originality, the feasibility, and the passion that you show for the proposal. If you do require further support, obviously you should be discussing this with your supervisor or other academics within your department for advice, but you can also bring an application to careers appointments. There'll be advice at further study events, which you can find in Handshake. Check out our further study web pages and you'll see the link below. And also talk to PhDs and postdocs within your department. You'll also find the findaphd.com website incredibly helpful. And for other presentations in this series, part 1 covers what's involved in a PhD and is it right for you? Part 2 covers finding and funding a PhD.